All right, let's bring up the fan favorite, Juan O Savin. He was here with us on Friday night. It was great to have him. Juan, it is good to have you back again tonight to kind of run through the headlines as we see this landscape unfolding before the election. How are you?
Great, great. The one thing I want to just blast right into it, the Biden stuff. Uh, President Trump today mentioned that this was the second biggest crime family in American history. Well, where's the first? The first is the Clinton crime family. Okay, uh,
That's right.
we aren't even through the biggest part of this. People think that it's all Biden all the way to the election. The Clintons are in here too. The Obamas were wanting to get in here, but they're going to get aced out before they ever get fully started. Long and short of it is these issues that we're going through today related to everything impeachment, the whole attack against President Trump has its roots all the way back into the mid and late 80s and all through the 90s. Bill Barr, when Democrats get upset when they lose this election shortly, when the Biden crime team goes down, all of them, and Democrats are upset, they shouldn't be looking to President Trump or the American voters pointing fingers as though we're the reason that they didn't win. The reason they didn't win is because they backed a crime family. And the people that protected that crime family didn't do their job. The media that protected that crime family right up until now, till you couldn't hold it in, it's bursting through the seams. It's the American media that got you a losing team by protecting the criminality. It's Attorney General Bill Barr who didn't bring charges when they were there ready to be done. Indictments exist. This isn't about bringing indictments. And I just want to remind your listeners, in the mid 90s, Hillary Clinton was indicted multiple times by grand juries. Ken Starr chose not to take any of those to trial, and he made the arbitrary decision himself that he couldn't get convictions by a jury, so he wasn't going to proceed to prosecution. Now, wait a minute. Grand juries found that there was enough evidence to warrant going to trial. The prosecutor decided arbitrarily, not a jury, that those charges wouldn't amount to enough to get a conviction. So a jury of American voters, citizens, never got a chance to have a full trial. And remember, the evidence that was brought at the grand jury level is essentially preliminary. There's all sorts of investigative work. There's a back and forth. There's discovery. There's further witness statements. That's a secret grand jury. They never had a chance to flesh out the whole case. So again, here, Bill Barr has indictments. Durham has indictments. Numerous players have indictments in the federal judicial system, but the federal judiciary is broken. FBI Director Wray had these laptops, the hard drives, from multiple directions, both from Chinese dissidents who are trying to take down the deep state in China, which I'll be talking about in another show here later tonight. And we had it from right here in the United States. It didn't just come from one location, it didn't just come from the computer shop. So we have FBI Director Wray not proceeding with proper investigations. On what planet is that appropriate? Anybody else, they'd have proceeded with investigations. So what you have is, even going into Mueller and his whole operation, when Democrats lose and lose big in this coming election, it's their own criminality. It's the criminality on the part of the media in not being fair in their coverage because they're a captured operation. I've said numerous times to your audience and other audiences, America and all of these various government and media entertainment outlets are a captured operation. We're not getting to the truth. We're not getting told the truth. We're being protected from the truth by these criminals. And so the only way we're going to get back to a fair, even, just America, classic America, is to literally burst the seams on all of these places with real news, real understanding of the stories, and the drug money, the corruption, and the underground railroads of child trafficking, sex trafficking that exist right here in America. And if we uh, you can be in denial of it. It's nothing's going to stop what's coming right now. It's already past the point of containment, and the Democrats know that. The only issue we have now is, will people choose to roll over and go to sleep or be awake? I say that most of America, a large number, larger than ever has existed in my lifetime, have chosen to wake up right now.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that are in denial on the numbers, they can go ahead and roll over and go back to sleep. But this time around is different. There's a normalcy bias that's existed in America for 30, 40 years, where it was, you can't get to justice, you can't beat City Hall, etc. Um, the the operation here in America this time around, and I would attribute it to, in large measure, the Q operation, educating people, helping people to have the information to educate, has amounted to a disruptive education um, environment. It's bypassing the normal modes of education. So just like in the universities, they want always to build on the prior knowledge and the prior scholars, and they don't want you to go out and break out and do something completely different. In a military environment, a disruptive technology is one that doesn't build on existing technologies. It's totally new. It doesn't start with the existing systems and build on top of that. It's totally a breakout. That's a disruptive technology. Right now, today, what you're watching, Ann, and what your viewers are witnessing, is a disruptive political
Right.
environment where the norms of how we get news, what we hear, who we hear it from, are totally being shattered. People will not accept the newsmakers, the talking heads, the news systems,
That's
the
right.
Facebook, all of these places that are choke points, control points of what you get to hear and how you get to hear it. They're choosing not to restrict themselves to only those places, those sources, those experts for their opinion, because the experts, it's an inside secret handshake crowd that is promoting each other with secret relationships. They're married half the time. The political person's married to the
That's
media person's married to the policy person. And those relationships, you don't realize it looking at it, Ann, and yet they're each promoting each other, mutual self-promotion in these families. That is what's being exposed here. The Biden
what
crime
a
family doesn't exist in a vacuum. It exists because the other elements of it, they're all related. They're all getting an advantage over the general public by working together against us. It's a very small crowd.
So we understand that a lot of these people are incredibly complicit, and a lot of them are going to face charges, whether it's treason or obstruction or lying or whatever, child trafficking. But we're also seeing some other things in the landscape change, such as satellite photographs of Guantanamo Bay, Gitmo, in other words, has had a lot of upgrades, and there's been a lot of different satellite images that have been published. I see it popping up all over social media now. What can you tell us from your vantage point why these upgrades are existing? Understanding we have terrorists that have been in there for 20 years and they're aging, they're pushing into their 60s and maybe even older at this point. But there's more rooms, it looks like, available. Are they setting up for some of these people, like the Clintons and the Bidens and maybe the Obamas? Who are they making all this available space for?
Well, obviously, it's not just foreign terrorists. This is domestic terrorists that actually occupy offices in America. Those pads there are set up to have rapidly assembled tent-like structures that can be used for long-term prisoner housing out in the harbor, virtually unknown to most anybody. They built out pier assemblies to be able to dock these FEMA ships that can hold large numbers of prisoners that were set up for parking all across the U.S., both coasts. And they can all be parked in Gitmo right now out there in the harbor. They've had a Marine um, what amounts to an aircraft carrier that's capable of handling our helicopter type aircraft, the Ospreys, and landing and taking off from there to add additional aircraft support there besides the airstrip. So you can literally bring all of those prison ships in and add additional housing instantaneously. Um, we have capability to move a tremendous amount of people there. And it's not just going to be the political uh, geriatric prisoners from these various crime families, but there are some other terrorists that have been holding America hostage that will be picked up and brought in also. Um, one of them that people talk about all the time is Soros, and he's going to get a surprise. He's going someplace that's not on U.S. soil or controlled by the U.S. There's agreements going on behind the scenes because other countries are not going to put up with this stuff either. This attack on the world by these crime families, these globalists, we're pushing back. It's not going to be perfect. And a lot of the pushback is literally coming out of England. They'll have to decide to pick a lane. But America is going to lead the fight to bring bring the world back to right living. But we're going to start at home. We're not trying to fix the whole world. We're going to fix our own
Right.
country, and then we're
Right.
going to be available to assist where there's people that want the assistance, to want to work together to go out and try to get the world back under a sane leadership. The lunatics have been running the asylum for a long time, and that's about to stop.
All right, Juan, I want to have you back. We got to take a quick commercial break, but I want to talk about Justice Roberts, some of the stuff we've seen him do recently, the election, the stamina, of course, between the candidates, and of course, this quintessential good versus evil fight, which we see continuing. And you have something coming out very shortly that we had hoped to have out earlier, but I want you to get to that too. So can you stick around for a quick commercial break? We'll be
Sure,
right back. Awesome. All
sure.
right, we'll be right back after this break. Juan O Savin, great to be back with you this evening. We were talking earlier about the crime spree a little bit, and the fact that Gitmo has seen some expansions, but right here in this country where we have to look at ourselves, Justice Roberts today extending the mail-in ballot due date past November 3rd. I mean, seriously, is this how we run a country? Is this how a republic is supposed to work? Where does this guy get off on this, and what do they have him to get this guy to do this kind of stuff? I mean, it seems like he's always doing the strangest thing for a Republican appointed judge.
Well, let me go out on a limb here. I'm just going to make the prediction that before this second term of President Trump is over, Justice Roberts will have to step down.
Yes.
And I'm not
Good.
going to go into any of the details, but I believe that he will have to step down before this is over with. And from his standpoint, this is a survival issue. Um, Remember, I can't overemphasize this. All the players involved are playing for their lives. If President Trump, was not to win this election, these people would never stop with their effort to wipe out the Trump family legacy till every one of the kids is pushing shopping carts in the blasted to smithereens mall locations, just trying to survive because they want to wipe them out. On the other side, President Trump is playing to win for everything. And these people are all looking at going to prison for the rest of their natural life on this earth. Many of these people will never, ever walk free again by the time this president is done with them and members of their families for real crimes, crimes with real victims, not just paper chase crimes, not just process crimes, crimes
Right.
against the American people that involved life and limb. You're talking about the situation down on the border. Remember, we just arrested one of the top people in Mexico's government, a person that's second only to the president in power. That's how powerful this person was that just got arrested on Thursday night. And for us to realize that in taking this person down, we're going after the richest, one of the richest families in the world and one of the richest crime groups in the world, where they've made all this money on the backs of people in Central and South America, in Mexico itself. Why do people want to come to the U.S. from Mexico? Because it's so corrupt in Mexico, they can't make a living and take care of their children. So what are they having to do? They're having to come here. Mexico is rich, 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 rich in resources. Their people have the ability to be very wealthy. Those people that are becoming wealthy down there on the backs of the Mexican people.
Mm-hmm.
It's a horrendously criminal situation. We're going to help them get back on their own feet and run their country in a way that they get to be prosperous, to where they're a great partner for us because we can do exchange with them, not where they're having to run here just to get refuge from the crime families, the death, the murder, and the extortion of their people for their labor.
You know, Juan, one of the things I've learned and that we've learned over the last couple of years in covering Fast and Furious with this incredible group of people who've lost, like I said, they've lost loved ones, they've had their lives ruined, they've been wrongfully incarcerated. But one of our witnesses, Jeffrey Peterson, who's made quite a name for himself out there on social media because he's been so vocal about his disposition. He's a walkaway candidate, frankly. He's somebody who was a big supporter, donated millions of dollars to the Napolitano campaign, the Clinton campaign, even the Obama campaign, until one day he overheard a phone call from the former president of Mexico's son, who he was friends with, Emiliano Salinas. Now, mind you, Emiliano's father, Carlos, was referred to as the Saddam Hussein of Mexico, somebody who had no problem executing people left and right if it served his political agenda. But one of the things that Jeffrey Peterson remarked constantly about the Salinases was, of course, their political party, the PRI, which he says is basically the puppet master for the DNC. There's a very tight relationship between Tom Perez of the DNC and the Salinas family. Do you have any insight into any of that?
Well, just a very quick story. My sensei, when I was learning martial arts, he was a police officer in Mexico City and a member of the Salinas family, who was a little bit drunk, wanted to show his friends how powerful he was. So he took his gun out and went to assassinate my friend as a police officer, just to show that he could do it and get away with it. My sensei obviously survived because he trained me later on, but he had to flee Mexico. An interesting story all by itself, but that's the
Wow.
kind of arrogance that exists. It was completely asinine, but it was a drunken type of an arrogance because they're that powerful. That type of an attitude exists at the very highest levels, to even have to demonstrate to friends just how powerful they are. The That kind of criminality, I'll tell you also, that kind of arrogance is exactly what we're looking at here in the Biden crime family. That you could be as out there as Hunter is and get away with it, and nobody's coming after you. And he's not wrong. That family is not wrong. FBI Director Wray did not pursue, wouldn't even open a case after he had the tapes, the evidence of all the criminality that Hunter was involved in, and wouldn't even open a case. We have indictments by grand juries, and Attorney General Barr won't even ask for an arrest warrant or won't allow an arrest warrant to be served where they have been issued. That kind of arrogance is not misplaced. They've gotten away with it for a very long time. The only difference is, at this point with the election, enough people are waking up. Unlike the 90s, when they got away with it, I don't believe that they're going to get away with it now. This president and the American people aren't going to stand by. City Hall is not getting its way this time around. And that's why the vote right now isn't even really about President Trump. At this point in time, the vote is about justice
Right.
and making the case that we're going to have justice. You know, I've been in D.C. for, off and on for the last several months, pretty continuously. And last night I had dinner with an author. He's written 13 books, Mideast author, and then a number of people out of the Mideast. And we were working through some of the issues and some things that are coming up in the near future. One of the people present was a Democrat campaign or helped the Kennedy campaign back in the early 60s. And she said she was embarrassed to say that she lived her entire adult life up until just 2 years ago as a Democrat promoting all these people, and the
Right.
scales have fallen from her eyes. And she says, I'm embarrassed to say I just didn't understand. And it
That's what
took
it is.
the aggressiveness and the audaciousness of President Trump to get her to think again. She hated Trump. She didn't vote for him. She didn't like him. And she said, but now she sees that she was the one that wasn't getting it, that she was being
Right.
coddled and cooed and agreed with everything.
Right.
And she's now become one of the most outspoken. She lives right there in Georgetown. She's one of the most outspoken people against what's been going on, because she herself, she compares it to like when she was a smoker 30 and 40 years ago. And she said when she went to quit, she was, annoyed at all the people that would badger her about stopping smoking. Now she's one of the most adamant anti-smokers, but she understands how destructive it is. And she
That's
compares
right.
that to her attitude with being a Democrat and the defensiveness she had. But now that she's seen it,
That's
she can't
right.
stand it. You mentioned
When
Justice Roberts. Well, go ahead. I'm
Juan,
sorry.
we've got, I need to sort of wrap this up a little bit because I want to give you a chance to talk about, we've got another segment we have to get to before we wrap the show, and it's on a Fast and Furious segment. But I do think it's important. Can you share with the audience what we are waiting for from you? Because we hope to have it this weekend, but there were some complications on the end of technology, of course. So can you reveal anything more?
Um, you know, we have a book. I have a book that's coming out, and it was quite a interesting project to get it together, racing it to get it in under the wire before the election. It actually has legs out long beyond the election. The electronic version will be available in just a few hours, and we'll have that
Oh,
information available on your website.
great. Yeah.
It's a spectacular, beautiful book. It's an illustrated book magazine, really. And the print version will be available for people to order probably sometime tomorrow afternoon, and they'll be delivered, literally by this weekend. It's an important book. The people that have seen it have been pretty unanimous. Folks that saw it last night, and
Okay.
one of them being offered them 13 years, said it was one of the most spectacular pieces that he's ever seen. So I'm looking forward to letting
Can't
your
wait.
audience have first crack at it.
That's awesome. Thank you, Juan. Thank you so much. In fact, you can see partially the cover in your avatar this evening. It's a partial of your cover, and I've seen some of the images from your book. Absolutely fantastic. Juan O Savin, always a delight to have you on. Going to have you back on some more because we have so much more to talk about. And I would like to get more into the book once we have all gotten a crack at taking a look at it. So maybe we can actually do like a book club night, which would be a lot of fun, and go through it and engage with
Oh,
the
that'd be
audience some more.
fantastic.
We've got a big audience
I'll
tonight.
read.
Everybody
I'll
was so
read a
happy to
couple
see you.
paragraphs. I'll read a couple paragraphs, and you can put them out there for your audience. I think they'll get a kick out of it. And thanks
We
so
are going
much,
to do
Ann.
that tonight. As a matter of fact, I will get that recorded and put out ASAP. We have Mike Deddy coming up next. Juan O Savin, thank you so much. Really appreciate you stopping by this evening.